You've heard me say a million times that the reason we got Donald Trump was because Americans are hurting and they're desperate for a new direction. And they think they thought they voted for change with Barack Obama, and they didn't. Income inequality got worse under Barack Obama. We got more wars, more income inequality. The banks got bigger, the unions got smaller, and people got squeezed. Now, NBC News says Americans see themselves in debt forever, even as they continue to borrow. It's definitely a depressing statistic, says one analyst. So a new survey from creditcards.com. Creditcards.com.
Wonder what they do.
Bop, bop. So a new survey from creditcards.com finds that more than 2 in 5 Americans currently carrying debt don't know when they'll pay off those balances. And 1 in 4 say they expect their debts to outlive them. So you know all those stats I give you? This is some more of those stats. You know that stat of like 63% of Americans can't afford a $1,000 emergency? That kind of stat. 80% of all workers live paycheck to paycheck. You know that stat. 50% of all wage earners earn less than $30,000 in the United States. You know these stats that I keep telling you all the time? Here's some more. 1 in 4 people carrying debt say they expect their debts to outlive them. And 2 out of 5 say they don't know when they'll be able to pay them off. When we did a similar study back in 2013, only 9% never expected to get out of debt. Now it's 25%. Things have gotten worse I'm not a math surgeon, but that's 6 years, right? 9 minus 3 is 6. So it's almost tripled. The amount of people is almost tripled. That was under Barack Obama. So it almost tripled. It was 9%. Now it's 25%. A total of 9. Let's talk about this because this is a little confusing to me. A total of 9 increases in the Federal Reserve's benchmark interest rate since the end of the Great Recession. So they've had 9 increases in the Federal Reserve's benchmark interest rate since the end of the Great Recession. And that means that credit cards' annual percentage rate that they charge you for borrowing money. So they say it ended June 2009. Really? That's when the Great Recession ended? So ever since then, they've 9 times they've raised the benchmark interest rates, which is the rate that the credit cards can change, nearly all of which are variable and tied to the Fed's prime rate. They're at a record high. So the interest rate that credit cards charge people, it's at a record high right now of 17.41%. That's the average rate. By comparison, the lowest average credit card rate came in April of 2008, hitting a trough of 11.11%. So now the average rate that they're charging people to borrow money, credit cards, has jumped 6%. 6%, which is almost 50% more. What's more than 50% more? Because 6 is more than 50% of 11. So it's gone up almost more than 50%. Look at me doing the math surgery. So interest rates have gone up by over 50% since the end of the recession. Since April 2008, and then higher interest rates makes it harder for borrowers who owe an average of roughly $5,700 to pay off their balances. Quote, making only minimum payments at the average rate, you'll be in debt for almost 20 years. That's paying off $5,700. If you make the minimum payments, you'll be in debt for 20 years, and you'll end up paying more than $7,000 in interest. So on that $5,700, you're going to pay $12,700. To borrow that money, it's going to cost you $12,000. Americans also are increasingly leery about adding on to their debt loads by buying a home and taking on a mortgage. Last month's Fannie Mae Home Purchase Sentiment Index found that the number of Americans who think it's a good time to buy a home dropped by 12 percentage points in 1 month.
I'm surprised it's not higher.
So people are getting scared.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's starting to get. But people, people have irrational exuberance. Isn't that what that Alan Greenspan used to call it? Irrational exuberance. I think that's what he called it. I could be wrong, but I think people have a positive outlook on our economy, and then that's irrational. That's what I'm saying. And it should be. You're right. I agree with you. It should be higher than that. I agree with you. Third quarter data from the American Bankers Association found that delinquencies among credit cards issued by banks rose from 2.93% to 3.05%. Although the trade group noted that this still is below the pre-recession average of 4.33%, there are other signs of stress in Americans' ability to keep up with their borrowing. Last year, data from credit bureau Equifax found that the number of severely delinquent store credit card accounts rose to 4.65%, and that delinquencies hit their highest level since early 2011. So that's more bad data. People have lost confidence in buying houses. People don't ever think they're going to get out of debt. Delinquencies are rising, and here they are. They're the highest they've been since 2011. I think American consumers' confidence is very high, Gonzalez said. Should it be that high? I don't think so. People are overextending themselves and interest rates are rising. That's why we're seeing these delinquencies. So interest rates are starting to rise and people keep overextending themselves. Why? Because we have a shit economy in America that doesn't pay people a living wage. And so people are borrowing to maintain a lifestyle.
Right now, there are 800,000 employees that they're worried about not being able to pay for their bills. And what are the consequences of that? I'm reading an article, Jimmy, that they document, like in 2015, that there are 44 states that have debtors prisons, and civil court judges can issue arrest warrants for debtors.
That's crazy. Like when I was a kid, they used to talk about that, how in England they used to have debtors prisons, and we came here and we got rid of that stuff, and how they're doing that again. And so this is the world we live in now. This is your great capitalist success story. This is your capitalist success story where 2 out of 5 people think they'll never get out of debt. This is your capitalist success story? Really? 80% of workers live paycheck to paycheck? This is your 30 million Americans don't have health care in the richest country in the world? This is your capitalist success story. This sounds like a failure. This sounds like a system that doesn't work. You've heard me say it a million times. I'll say it again in case someone's watching this for the first time. What do you call a system that takes the richest country in the world and renders half of its population poor or low income? You call that system a failed system. You don't say the people are failed, do you? No. Unless you think everybody in the country is a failure. And I've heard people say that when I give the 63% can't afford $1,000 emergency. People go, well, what did those people do with their money? Why didn't they? No, the fact that it's 63% means it's not an individual problem. These aren't individuals making bad decisions. This is a system that renders people poor en masse. Do you think 63% of the people who live in America are just fucking irresponsible idiots? The majority of your countrymen are worthless? That's what you think? That's not the case, obviously. You know that. That's a system. That's what that statistic reveals. And so the problem that America has been using since trickle-down economics started is we treat our economic problems as individual problems. When a corporation takes thousands of jobs and ships them to poor people in a more desperate country, we treat that as an individual problem. That's a societal problem that we're hollowing out our manufacturing base. It's hollowed out. That we don't have any jobs anymore in America that pay well. Like, that's a societal problem. That's not an individual problem. And so we have to attack those problems as a society, and that's what we're not doing. Where's Gavin Newsom is my governor? Where's his program to combat income inequality? Where's the president's program to he got a program to get more money to billionaires. He just did it. Where's his program? Where's Trump's program to help ease income inequality? Where's his program to help raise wages? That's what we don't have. And we don't have a national conversation about that. And the only conversation we have about that is raising the lowest earners raise up to a living wage. That's it. And it's not even really $15 an hour. That might be a living wage for one person, but you can't. Anyway, let me throw it over to Mike.
Well, I was just going to add a lot of these statistics, too, that we're throwing around in this segment. Like, a lot of them are very much connected. What happens when somebody can't afford a $1,000 emergency? Well, when an emergency happens, they got to put it on a credit card. They have to do something, and it's not because they're lazy or irresponsible. Right. They have no choice, so now they're going to get pummeled in debt and in interest.
That is correct, Ron. Well said.
So, Jimmy, I'm reading how Kamala Harris has finally come on board where she's going to go ahead and support the $15 minimum wage that will be able to be instituted by 2024. So that's good to know. It'll be able to help those people who've overextended themselves.
Yeah. In about 6 or 7 years, over a half a decade away. What is it? What year is it? 2019, 2024. That's 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Again, I'm doing some math surgery on the fly, and I'm not even using my fingers. That's 5 years away, not 6. Okay. All right. So there you go. Things are worse than you thought, and the statistics are here to prove it. And now it's up to us to solve these problems. And I have a feeling these problems aren't going to get solved unless we do yellow vests. And right now in India, I'm going to do a story on this tomorrow on our live stream. Right now in India, 150 million people are on strike. Did you hear about it on the news? No, you didn't. I wonder why. We're announcing our live dates for 2019. We're going to Chicago and Portland, Seattle, New York, all over the country. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all our tickets to all our shows. It'll be right underneath there, too. Please become a patron if you like our content and help support the show. You can become a patron for $5 a month, and we give you hours of bonus material. And make sure you're subscribed. They unsubscribe people every day. I'm not kidding. Make sure you're subscribed and click that bell so they give you a notice when we drop a video. It's the only thing we can do to fight back against the bastards. Thanks for your support.